Hello and welcome to ElseNerds, a production of Galactic Network. I'm Gregor Sprague.
I'm Corey Scott, live model decoy.
For all info on this show, including show notes and subscription links, go to ElseNerds.com. And for other Galactic Network programs, go to GNcast.com.
On ElseNerds, we tend to shoot our mouths without thinking, and we will spoil things, and we'll spur liberally.
Yes, this is true. So as you can hear by the accent, that is not Corey Scott. That is Beatmaster, our Swiss producer extraordinaire. And we have another producer. You could almost call us a producer showcase because we have Bryce Castillo, the producer of the Bizarre Briefing, Cord Killers, Night Attack, Scam School, and Weird Things. And he does so many more things. Bryce, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
No problem. You know, it's as Beat is doing the We're Not Worthy from Wayne's World thing here. But yeah, so we had one of your subjects. It was what I would call him, since he's Tom. We had him on last week, and so we figured keep it on a roll. Let's get more people on here. And
yeah, I'm always happy to do podcasts and stuff. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for being here.
So let's get started with the ElseNews, the ElseNerds ElseNews of the week. And the first one is one that everyone's heard. So yeah, and it's I think a lot of people got a little too carried away because it's like, yeah, we'll do it. And I've seen the headline from everyone. Fox is interested in Firefly reboot, but only under one condition. That's the only headline I've seen for this article from 50 different places. But yeah, so the news is that Fox, with their recently bringing back, X-Files, Prison Break, and other networks doing it, like Netflix or NBC's bringing back Will and Grace. Netflix has rebooted Full House.
NBC brought back Heroes last year, right? Like it's a good time for reboots.
Yeah. So everyone's like, well, what about Firefly? The show that was canceled way too soon and brought on way too early, was way ahead of its time. And basically during the a panel at the TCA, they said that the ball is really in Joss Whedon's court. Now, the whole comment just made me say, well, no, duh. I mean, yeah, you hear about how everyone loves Firefly and would love to see more Firefly, and what they want more Firefly. So yeah, of course you would say, like, yeah, just we got to get Joss Whedon to do it and all that. So yeah. What do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about the news here of more Firefly?
Like having Joss Whedon be a condition of it makes total sense, because if you brought back Firefly and it wasn't Joss Whedon writing and directing it, no one would watch. Like literally, you would get backlash from everybody because it's a sci-fi show, so nobody's going to watch it, and it's a fan reboot. And if it doesn't have like the crown jewel of the original series, they're not going to want to watch it. Like that's the bare minimum of like having Joss Whedon back.
No, I could see that, because I mean, like I told B earlier, because he asked, "You seen Firefly?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've seen Firefly. I'm a big fan of Firefly. I've read all, if not like 95% of the Firefly comic books that Dark Horse has produced, and it's that similar thing, like where the first ones weren't Joss Whedon; they were one of his brothers, writing it. This one, is the creator and writer of iZombie, who's writing the new one, the No Power in the Verse.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so I'm like,
is it still good?
Yeah, it's still good, but it's like I think if they got, I'm not saying with the TV side of things, but it's like, in the comic books at least, they get someone good working on it. Which actually makes me, honestly saying that, it makes me think, man, if only they could have got and I'm blanking on his name, the guy who did the art for iZombie. He's currently doing Silver Surfer over at Marvel. Michael Allred, that's it. Like that would have been a really interesting take on the characters that they always draw them based on, Nathan Fillion after Mal and all that. And like that'd have been really cool to see.
Just a second there, the comics, when do they happen? Before the show, while the show, or before the movie, or after the movie?
So this last one, No Power in the Verse, is after the movie. So it's and and spoilers for the movie, which has been out for a long time now. But Wash is dead.
Right.
They've actually grieved the last book because it's one that it comes out every so often. Like they'll do, No Power in the Verse, and it's a 6-issue miniseries and stuff like that. But but yeah, it's their Wash, and I'm blanking on Gina Torres's character's name. Yeah, their kid is like 4 years old, like she's a little toddler in here and stuff, and it's really cool to see like how they've taken out. But like the beginning, it was in between the comic book and the movie, and then there was some stuff that was like there was a Shepherd preview, like prequel book, and then it was after a lot of it's after the movie because they figured that's sort of the easiest place to go is after the movie. And actually with the one before No Power in the Verse, it seemed like Firefly season 2
Really?
because I mean, yeah, it took with how they had that, it was Gina Torres' character, and again I'm blanking on the name, but she she was getting grieving over the loss of Wash and all that. And so I mean and it was just really really cool at how they told that story without needing the television to do it, to be able to use it and transfer it to another medium.
Yeah. And with sci-fi on TV, especially being, a historically being a lower return on investment, just in terms of making television, it actually kind of makes sense if they just kept making comics. I've seen Firefly. It's been a while since the last time I've seen it, but if I was really hungry for more Firefly, I would probably rather get a new serialized comics than try to wrangle all of the actors up again for 10 episodes once a year. Like I feel like that I don't know. This is getting into hypotheticals now, so I don't want to stray too far, but I think that would be really, really cool is if Fox and maybe Joss Whedon gave his blessing or whatever that said, hey, like it's easier for us to tell stories this way. You will get more of them, and it's still the same characters, yada yada yada. Like that would be pretty exciting, especially in. But then again, like I don't know, comics are also not doing super great, so who knows?
Yeah, I mean, comics are. Oh, go ahead, Beat.
Just saying that Universal also has its hands on the property because they released the movie. So the distribution rights between Fox and Universal also not helping the movie or the series to get rebooted.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm on Wikipedia right now looking through, and Chris Robertson is the guy who created iZombie and is writing them. And actually, there's one that I've skipped in between because the one I was referring to was Leaves on the Wind. And, then they had in there The Warrior and the Wind. Wait, I think I did. Oh, yeah, sorry, it was in Free Comic Book Day. So, yeah, I did read that one. But, I mean, I like these because they give you the comic books, they give you these little things. And I could see them easily doing an ongoing series. And I do think, comic books are in an uptick right now. I mean, we talked about it on, a couple weeks ago with Marvel trying to rejigger their digital comics thing with the print comics. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we're talking to a guy who reads about anywhere from 25 to 40 comic books a week, may or may not pay for them, but has started paying for comic books. I mean, this is the past 2 weeks in comic books right here. I got 4 comic books that I bought and all that, and it's like, yeah, the stories are getting really good, and I'm starting pull lists and stuff like that. Like this is stuff I wouldn't have done, that wouldn't happen 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. and all that. So I mean, comic books I really feel like it's making a comeback. All right.
But it would be that, I think that would behoove a publisher to say, hey, we figured it out. We figured out the rights and stuff, and we're gonna make this not be an occasional thing.
Yeah, I think with it, because it's at Dark Horse right now, so that's part of the problem. Is it's Dark Horse, if I remember correctly, is the 4th or 5th place in the publishing world, behind Marvel, DC, Image, and then I think they're pretty close up there with IDW. But they do a very similar thing to IDW, where it's licensed property. It's like the only original things I think that are at Dark Horse, and I'm probably wrong. And if I am, hey, mail at ElseNerds.com to tell me how I am wrong. But I think the only thing that they have that's like their own is Hellboy. Is the Hellboy franchise.
Really?
Yeah, because they've got, like, I know they've got the Tomb Raider is licensed over there, Aliens,
versus Predator.
Yeah, the Aliens versus Predator. I think there was an Archie book with the Predator. Archie versus the Predator was through Dark Horse. Yeah, there's quite a bit of things over there, and it seems like they're going more licensed routes. And they did have Star Wars before Marvel bought
Buffy
that.
was there too, no? I seem to recall that Whedon had 2 other properties that were put out on comics.
Yes,
so he's not a stranger to it, so it works for him.
They continued on with the TV shows. So Buffy and Angel, they've done the seasons in there in comic book forms.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, Dark Horse would be the people to do a regular run. It's just a matter of getting the right writer and team there to do the books.
Yeah.
And it seems like especially with this last couple stories, I mean, Chris Robertson might be that guy.
Now, we were talking about at the start of the story, comparing, comparing Firefly with X-Files and Prison Break and Heroes and Will and Grace, and I think Firefly is such a cult classic, right? It is like, for sci-fi, it's great sci-fi, but I don't know if that's setting up a potential TV reboot for failure, though. Like, the X-Files is legendary. Prison Break is a huge international success. 24 is huge internationally. Will and Grace was a revolutionary TV sitcom. Like, I would love to get more Firefly with the original cast and with Joss Whedon. But at the same time, you don't want to see something you love come back and not be beloved, right? Mm-hmm. Like we saw, like when Futurama came back, originally as those movie / split up episodes, and then new seasons on Comedy Central. I personally didn't even like those seasons as episodes of Futurama, but I also feel like they generally weren't well received. And for as much as I love Futurama and have a very high regard for that show in terms of blending, again, sci-fi with comedy and animation, like, I got what I wanted, and it was ho-hum,
So yeah. So are you more leery of it as a whole? So like because with the X-Files and Prison Break, and I think even the Will and Grace thing, they're both just limited series. It's just they're returning for the one series. Now, I think X-Files did so well that they're like, and the writers were all like, well, we got more stories we could tell. Mm-hmm. So, we'll do another season.
Which is very common series. Like True Detective started off as a limited series.
Yeah.
They got to pick up before crashing and burning. But like Young Pope, which started off as a limited series and has already been renewed. Like limited series is a very good way of saying, hey, if this is actually good, we'll give you more of it. But I still am pretty worried about it. I just don't know if the time has passed.
That's the thing also, to make such a move from Whedon's part or from the studio's part. There are Rabbit fans, but weren't there enough to sustain it while it was on the air? Apparently not. And also Fox is Fox and fucked with the episode orders and other things. So it was doomed from the get-go. But it took many shows that tried for fan route to get started there, like Farscape tried, and Jericho, Jericho, and other shows that got just an extension to it, and that was enough. Not a whole season or a whole new approach. Close the open story plots and give it a good send off. And the movie was already that. So
Sure.
I support your point. It can only lead to disappointment, mostly.
We're going to end up with even the best version of Firefly, a Firefly reboot or a new limited series or an extra finale season or whatever, is going to be people saying, oh, well, you retconned this and now Wash is still alive, or you didn't retcon this and Wash is still dead, and I love Alan Tudyk, or like I think that fans of cult properties can be
very picky.
Can be picky. Yeah, against their own interests. And
Mass Effect 3.
Yeah, you're right. So it's I would love it. I would openly, I would definitely watch whatever came out of a new Firefly reboot. I just cautiously optimistic is what I'll.
Yeah. No, yeah, and I think we should point out that basically the ball is in Joss Whedon's court, for whether
not doing anything right now. Joss Whedon, I'm sure he's just like got time on his hands and just waiting for the next thing to fall into his lap.
Well, I mean, what last I heard, he's probably going to be doing another one of those, like Much Ado About Nothing, like, to spend a weekend at his house with his friends, make him, do Shakespeare, like one does.
Sure.
And stuff like that. But yeah, so who knows? I mean, but no. So our next story is, Gabe Newell has announced Half-Life 3. No, sorry, that's just Force of Habit. That Valve is in development of 3 new VR games. And this is going to be on their setup. This is going to be with the HTC Vive. And we actually got talking about this before the show about a lot of the VR things here. And this is actually a pretty interesting deal because I'm where it is the lower end, but I'm a VR owner. I have the Oculus or the Samsung Gear VR, and I love it. I freaking sit here and I get lost in these games that I'm playing, and it's like fighting my arm getting tired while I'm doing what I call these cyclops here, as I'm firing laser beams at people and stuff like that. But this is still, a really cool, concept, because it just tells me that, we've got some of the best game makers doing this stuff. And Bryce, you actually, sort of picked this story. So what made you want to talk about VR? Do you own VR?
I don't, but Brian Brushwood, who I work for, does have an HTC Vive setup in the studio that we use for all the podcasting stuff. So I've used it plenty of times, and it genuinely is a lot of fun and very intuitive, just in terms of like motion controllers and sensing all that stuff, and it being a very stable framework. But to see anyone from Valve outright say, we are working on new games, and they're going to be full games and not a mini game collection like the lab was, which is I believe it's free with the HTC Vive, is in and of itself a surprise. Gabe also did an AMA on Reddit a few weeks back where he said, when we make games, we make games when we believe that there are systems for gaming that can be innovated. And so when they did Left 4 Dead, it was because they had innovative ideas of how an AI should coordinate your game, your multiplayer game, the AI director. With TF2, it was about marketplace and out of game experiences and stuff.
Yeah.
And so he hinted that they were also working on some new ideas in terms of a potential Left 4 Dead 3. But for someone to come out and say we are working on full games and they are VR games is big, because in the VR space right now, there are you could probably count on one hand the amount of games that we would consider to be full video game experiences in VR. You have Resident Evil 7, which is a PlayStation thing right now on VR, and maybe that's it in terms of having a campaign, a multi-hour all VR campaign. Like, can either of you guys think of one? Like
the only other one I could think of, and it's not a game, it's more of an experience, is Annie Amber. It's in the marketplace, but I played it on here, and it was one of the better games because it's one of these, you sit in an office chair and you're going around. There's music, there's no audio or no, voices or anything like that, but you are going around and you're learning about this person by going to dots, by going to, like, you'll see a circle and you'll go, and as you look at the circle, you go around it. So you're just sort of looking around while your head's pointed there.
Yeah.
As you're looking at that thing. And it's one that, I got when I got the headset, because it also came with, like free Oculus content and stuff. So I'm like, sweet, buy this, or, get the game. And I'm going, oh crap. And I haven't even finished it. Eventually you got into puzzle elements, like, and it was really cool at how, no words. The only words that I've seen are Annie Amber. And that's in the beginning, as you have the logo with and all that stuff. Other than that, it's like there's not really any other words, but then you're like, and you just go around, you naturally find how to do things. And I'm like,
sure,
this is so cool. But I wouldn't necessarily call it a game. It's more of an experience.
Well, it looks like I'm looking at the Steam page, and it looks like it's very puzzle heavy and environmental,
yeah.
Which also reminds me of it's not called Occlusion. It's the new game from Cyan Worlds, the people who made Myst, and it's a Myst-like game. Oh, Abduction, which is fully VR compatible in that you can play it with VR. Though I don't necessarily know where that leads, because Resident Evil is also fully VR compatible, but that's an action first-person game, where this is just a puzzle first-person game. It's hard to see, but for Valve to come out and say we are working on 3 new games, and for them to say they're going to be full big games, ideally that will be worth the price tag, is big. It's pretty big, and we've already seen Valve spend resources on VR in a way that they should have spent for, or that they said they would spend for Steam machines or Steam OS, and then didn't because those things flopped. So it's interesting.
Do you either of you own a Steam controller?
I do. I have one.
I don't.
Is it a success or ODT, or did it fail flat out?
I don't. Ever since I got it, I haven't been playing with the controller much at all, honestly. I think I'd probably give it in the times that I've used it. I've found that the community for, like, you basically have to custom key map all of the buttons on everything, because it's not the same as the 360 controller, which is the standard for a PC controller. And I think the community exists there to really suss out the subtleties and the intricacies of the controller. And so you can download community maps that work really, really. There are even some for I found out that they have that people have made them for, like, Hearthstone. Like, if you put Hearthstone into Steam will recognize that it's Hearthstone. And there are people who have made, like, it'll use the motion sensing, so that's how you control your cursor. So you can actually, like, throw the control. You can do, like, a throwing motion with the controller, and that will, like, bring your cursor up, and so you can kind of throw cards on the field. It's fun, like fun little things like that. I think the community has stepped up, but there are still parts of the Steam controller that are very wonky and seem undercooked, and I don't expect those to be finished.
I see it as a I know things to come, maybe with the VR undertaking they have, because they went out of their way to bring the keyboard experience to your controller. That was the attempt they had at the beginning. And then, as you said, the community came in, but also it provided us with universal controller access to all games, I think. Now every game is able to use the controller configuration.
Sure, because it
not just the Steam controller, but also the Xbox 360, Xbox One, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 controllers, I recall.
I think that was an update to Steam that would recognize more controllers like the PlayStation 3 controller.
But one led to the other, so I hope that their VR undertaking will bring not just something for the Vive or something for Steam, but for the VR in general. And they are able to, they have the heft behind their lever and can say, okay, we're going to go full on here. And it's exciting for the VR community, but I'm careful to not expect too much, because they made great games and great engines and other things, but it's like Rovio with Angry Birds or Minecraft, and you have to repeat your success on that level anytime. Like Apple, it's a little bit far off, but it's the same thing. It's hard to keep that up. So I'm hopeful, but I keep my expectations a little bit tempered.
And Valve has the unenviable position of also having to maintain Steam, which is a client in a store, and developer relations. Like we also saw this past week that Valve came out and said, yeah, we're going to get rid of Steam Greenlight because you guys have been telling us very accurately, by the way, Greenlight is a piece of trash.
Inquisition and stuff, yeah.
Yeah. And so you have a game, basically a game company that has to spend so many resources, so much of their resources being a store, and support their engines. They just came out with a new version of Source. I want to say it's Source 2 or Source 3, which
Source 2.
Source 2, which is what they ported Dota over to. So when Dota 2 had that huge update that changed basically the entire paradigm of the game, that is because they put it on the new version of Source, which is supposed to be running their new Left 4 Dead game. Like it's tough, right? You don't see Epic making as many games because they have to make Unreal, or they have to support Unreal. And Valve has put themselves in a position to be one of everything.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's
go ahead. One last thing about Valve and VR is if you look at the HTC Vive, it's always been positioned as HTC making a Steam VR headset, which is a very particular bit of branding, but the subtext on it is eventually Steam or Valve will open up the Steam VR library, the Steam VR specifications, so that people can make Steam VR headsets. And once the technical side is down, and once people who have paid, it's like the Tesla thing, right? Once people have paid the high price for VR, the market and competition will be able to come in and offer more headsets at more affordable options and more affordable ranges, and the power will be so much more affordable that it will open itself up gradually to lower and lower price points.
Absolutely, but one thing, as we talked before, with Google dropping some services, also when you tend to do things like a test run and you put out their product, you're going to burn some customers because of it. And then you have to be careful that you don't appear to be not caring about the legacy or the first customers, the premium buyers and things like that. So sure. I can see that can backfire, but as you said, well, Valve has so many things going on that if one thing gets a little bit south, it won't take down the whole thing, because Steam itself is printing money, so they can allow themselves to fail once, twice.
Sure. And honestly, though, I think you've seen more like consumer double dipping on the Oculus side, where at first they came out with the headset, and then they came out with the controller and the room sensing stuff. Like there, and not to mention all of that being built on top of this crowdfunding campaign. So I think I would like to think most VR customers who are probably have more disposable income or are in a are able to spend as much money as it costs to run VR right now, would recognize that they are in a very like early days Tesla situation where they are basically subsidizing the development of this technology.
And then suddenly Google and Samsung eat their lunch because they do it on a $200, $300 basis.
I mean, Sony's already done that. Sony's already done that, and that's, I don't think that's going to make anybody too upset that right now there are more PSVR headsets out there than Oculus or Vive.
But even then, with on the PlayStation side though, is there that many games for it? Like I know there's the Batman VR. I think Star Wars Battlefront has a VR thing in it. And then the Resident Evil 7.
PlayStation on the PlayStation side, there are definitely a lot of like licensed experiences, like the Batman Arkham thing. And there is a Star Wars experience which I've heard is pretty meh. But I think Resident Evil 7 coming out and being all VR was a huge push for that. And also just the affordability of what PSVR costs and not also needing to buy a $1,500 computer to run it all. It's,
I don't know. All I've got to say is I am happy with my Samsung Gear VR doing the little just do things and
I bet there will be plenty. I mean, I think that's what more of the mobile VR space will evolve into is eventually mobile phones will become so powerful that they can do their own VR stuff, and there will be people who that is going to be exactly what they need, right? For the same reason that Chromebooks and netbooks were a big thing, like that's just another niche of the entire VR is just a whole new pie, and it's all the same. And so we'll probably end up seeing a lot of the same splitting off between casual or mobile or console or PC. Like I bet at the end of in 10 years it will look pretty similar to what those distributions are now.
And there's casual or more or less used to games and things like that. Facebook will be the main thing, the main attributor to bring it to the masses. I don't like to see that way. I would love to say it's it's a cast AR, it's whatever niche thing that comes in the emerges, but it's going to be Facebook mostly. I think that's going to be the main missionary, the evangelist for the technology, and they employ people for that are of high caliber. So they aren't kidding around. It's real to them.
I mean, Facebook certainly has enough money invested in it. I think they also very clearly have had some PR problems with Oculus as of late that I don't know that they've still quite gotten over. But Facebook, but also Facebook has made a very active showing of saying, hey, we have a studio that's going to focus on getting games and making games, and we have a studio that's going to be focused on making VR experiences, a whole their story studio, which is just about making movie-like experiences for VR, which is a function of the entire ecosystem that needs to be solved. And I think Facebook certainly has the resources for it, but I don't know. I think for as many people as Facebook can empower Oculus to reach, I think there will be a lot of people who Facebook's instant attachment drove them away from Oculus. We'll see.
No, I'll add with as a final little thing with the video things, and we probably should point out that your boss does do did do the Austin VR thing,
right? Discovery VR.
Yeah, for Discovery VR. That Jaunt actually I think has one of the best VR experiences around, because I was messing with that, and there's one in there where it was all John Lennon stuff, and so you're going around, and it's very much like has the Beatles aesthetic, and all that, and then just playing videos where it's him talking about the early days of the Beatles, and you can go around and they're playing archival clips while he's talking, and he's mainly in this one spot, and he'll mention something, like he'll mention, you know, John Lennon, and in will come this white light from around the room to draw you to what it's going to draw out, and it draws out Lennon. I'm like, that's great VR.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know, freaking awesome and stuff. That's that whole world experience. There's another one where he's playing, you know, at some stadium, and it goes between two cameras, one with him right there, like right there playing piano, and you're like, it's John Lennon, I could touch him, sort of thing. And then you're in the audience watching, you know, watching everything. You can just be like, I don't care about the show. Turn over here and watch the crowd freak out, sort of thing. It's just cool little things like that I've seen, and it's been seamless, like, and all that.
Yeah, like visual storytelling will be something that creators will suss out sooner rather than later with VR. But the other problem with storytelling, especially live action, it's I would assume it is easier in different ways for all digital, but with in terms of live action and cameras and stuff, those systems are very expensive and hard to execute on and even set up. They're getting easier, certainly, but it's that there's a for the same ways that we had a video revolution with DSLRs and streaming video. We will need to have that like over the cliff moment on VR creation tools. Those are coming, but I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, so our final story for the ElseNerds, ElseNews is that Dan Harmon has explained why Rick and Morty season 3 isn't ready yet. And guess what? He calls blamesies. He did it. It's his fault. Sorry. He actually said during
No.
Yeah, he actually said during Sundance a couple weeks ago that you know, he full out apologized, and you know, that the release date got pushed back because of him, and all that. There's nothing against Adult Swim. It's just like you could probably sum it up as he's really busy because, you know, he's doing 5,000 things right now, you know, with the CISO Harmontown or Harmon Quest, and you know, just doing a whole, probably just got busy or slacked off or something.
Have either of you guys seen Harmontown, the documentary?
Nope.
I haven't, no.
It's on Netflix now, and it's pretty good. It follows Dan Harmon right after he got fired from Community and went on the big nationwide tour. And the thing that you get to figure out from Dan Harmon, if you hadn't already listened to the podcast and figured it out, is that dude likes to take his time on his scripts. So if the rationale for why season 3 of Rick and Morty isn't here because he didn't write his scripts in time, or he was late, or they were over them, like, yeah, that sounds right. And I'm sure, like, there was a funny sort of viral video that went out from one of his most recent Harmontown episodes in the past week or two. Someone on stage asked him about season 3, and he goes into this rap of they're drawing it, and you know, it's at the point where like clearly it's gonna be done when the people who are not him can now finish their thing. But it's a late start, right? When you have a late start, you're always late.
Yeah, and I mean, this sort of seems to be a pattern with a few of the other TV shows, because the article that we got from IndieWire points out that you know, it was announced, you know, very early on in Atlanta that it was going to get renewed for season 2, but then it said that there won't be season 2 won't air until 2018. That's because of Donald Glover's busy schedule. And you know, Fargo took 16 months between seasons 1 and 2, as writer Noah Hawley worked on it. And you know, there is the fact that, you know, animation takes a long time to produce for Rick and Morty and all that. But I mean, I do think they've done some brilliant things on the Rick and Morty side, where, you know, they had Justin Roiland do the voice, you know, read the transcript of that fucked up court case that they very easily could just make a full episode of Rick and Morty out of, and all that. And then they got the animation and stuff done, and it looks like Adult Swim has premiered a set of claymation Rick and Morty shorts, that have matched characters up with the classic films like The Thing, The Fly, and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So I mean, there's plenty of stuff there that you can do to tease fans.
And Pocket Morty.
Yeah, and Pocket Morty, which may or may not have gave up on, but we'll probably jump back into it.
They do frequent updates, so Adult Swim mentioned them before, so they do good stuff on the game side. It's interesting to see somebody that's creative changing the game on a medium they aren't usually brought up with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's also Adult Swim's MO for their shows to have very long times between seasons. Mostly because it's a lot of the same production companies doing all of these shows, or these are very small production companies, or in this case where it's a very creator and writer driven process, and the writer takes time. But it's I think what you're seeing with all of these extra little clips and the commercials and even this they made a really interesting Galactic Federation website in sort of promotion for the new season, is because they recognize that Rick and Morty can be a huge crossover show if they promote it right, because it's not like they have a new show to premiere right now, but if they remind people, hey, Rick and Morty, they can have a huge mainstream appeal that Adult Swim shows generally don't have. So hopefully it can come out when it comes out. They've even talked about season 2 being incredibly difficult to animate because there were so many new character models, so many large set pieces. Remember in season 2, ready for spoilers, where Rick catches up with the hive mind entity that he dated at one point. And that hive mind entity for most of that episode is a different character. And in one scene, constantly shifts between a dozen different characters in super rapid succession. Designing those and animating all these different people and characters really takes time. The Simpsons, we pretty much know what every person who looks like in Springfield looks like, but these are aliens and these are brand new things.
Yeah, no, definitely. One thing that I will point out about with the Earth Galactic Federation website is part of me really wants one of those Galactic Federation cards. And I think if they don't offer those cards up at San Diego Comic-Con, they are missing a big boat there. Just a big little thing of, here's your Galactic Federation card, and just giving it away to people and all that. It seems like they're missing out on something right there.
Yeah. This is such a great, do you guys tipped me off to this before? It's at galacticfederation.com, but it's it starts off as oh, the Galactic Federation's so great for Earth and all these really creepy things. But you go to click and get a card and you get access to, I won't spoil it, but it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And I will point out, because when I first got on it, I got on it on mobile. This is a Tumblr page. They made this whole thing in Tumblr. I'm like, wait, you can do that with Tumblr? Holy crap.
Yeah. And this is another example of hey, we don't have a show for you, but we can write funny words. So we're going to give you a lot of funny words.
Yeah.
It's like the people that made the marketing campaign for Deadpool. When you know what you have at hand and treat it well, you're just going to amplify what's there. And they do it so well.
Yep. All right. The last thing I'll say about Rick and Morty is I need to see probably the last 3 episodes of season 2. Yeah, I know. I'm horrible at this.
Wait, so the Galactic Federation stuff doesn't even make sense for you.
But still, it's one. No, here's the thing, and this is the weird part.
They're 22 minutes.
Yeah, I know. What was it? I played Pocket Mortys before even watching the show. Because my friends were like, "Oh, Pocket Mortys." I'm like, "All right, I'll check it out." And I'm like, "All right." And then I started watching TV show. And I'm like, "Okay, I see where this is all coming from and stuff."
God, you can't.
I'm one of those backwards people.
Morty's is all the references to the TV show. Oh my goodness! How did you do that to yourself?
I'm one of them backwards people. There was a good chunk of time with The Walking Dead where I would watch Talking Dead before watching Walking Dead because of work and stuff. So it's like I'd hear Chris Hardwick and whoever talk about it, and then be like, "All right," and watch the repeat, and then watch Comic Book Man and go to bed.
And it helps to be a crack whore. Oh wait, that wasn't there.
I can neither confirm nor deny the views by Beatmaster.
And moving on.
So yeah, that is it for the ElseNews, and we will be right back. And we are back, and it is time for the ElseViews. This is where we bring what we've been nerding out over the past week on. And Bryce, I'm going to start with you. You have I'm going to assume it's a podcast.
Yes.
By the website here. So tell us about this.
So I make podcasts for a living. Half of my job is making podcasts for a living. So I listen. So by virtue of recording these shows, I listen to a lot of podcasts. But what got me into podcasting was comedy, and the now former NSFW show really inspired me to get into podcasts and stuff. And so when I listen to podcasts in my off time, I try to listen to comedy shows and kind of get a sense of what the type of comedy that I like, right? Like Night Attack is a comedy show ? But even then it's it's not like high concept or anything. And so for the past few years, probably one of my favorite comedy podcasts has been an Earwolf production called Hollywood Handbook, the insider's guide to kicking butt and taking and dropping names in the red carpet lined back hallways of this industry we call showbiz. What up? It is a high concept show. When you go in and you listen to it, you will either figure out who these characters, Sean and Hayes, are being, or you won't. And your recognition of the people that they are trying to be, which is Hollywood faux big shots, is a direct influence on if you like it or not. But it's really good just in terms of being kind of a traditional comedy format of a show where the hosts are being character versions of themselves. The guests that come on are sometimes being character versions of themselves, or sometimes, in the case of Pauly Shore, not. But they're
just a character.
No, there is like a sideways version of themselves. So in this most recent episode, they had Julie Klausner on, who was on Difficult People, and when she's on the show, she kind of plays a ditzier, more unaware version of herself, right? And it's really good, but it's also not for everybody. It is not the love fest that everybody could listen to, of like My Brother and Me, and it's not, the huge big names that could attract somebody on like a Comedy Bang Bang. But I think if you dig this style of comedy, which is very not even character based, but mood based and almost adversarial. There's one of the episodes in Hollywood Handbook where it's what is his name? He was on The Daily Show. He was
Colbert?
No, it was
One of the correspondents.
One of the correspondents, right?
Wyatt Cenac?
No, almost. Let me see if I can Google it really quick. Oh no, Google's too smart and it's only showing me recent ones. His name is, someone maybe edits this out. They
Nope,
do,
I'm keeping it in.
great. That's great. Asif Mandvi. They get Asif
Okay.
Mandvi on the show,
Oh,
and it's kind of a pretty big name for them, right? But also on the show, they have Scott Ackerman, who is the host of Comedy Bang Bang and ostensibly Sean and Hayes' boss at Earwolf. And so at the same time that they are kind of interviewing Asif, they are also in this premise of renegotiating their contract with Earwolf. Uh, and it's this, the premise is awkward and it's adversarial. It's just like there's actually a bit of conflict. If you've ever listened to like Tim Heidecker on podcasts where he can like fall into this character who is like having none of it and is not playing any of these fucking games, it's kind of like that. It's not for everybody, but I think if it is, it could be one of your favorite podcasts of all time.
Nice. So check that out at earwolf.com/so/Hollywood Handbook. And so my nerding out, because B is gonna pass on his nerding out, is the Lego Batman movie. And I'm going to do Bryce a favor because he has not seen it. And I am going to, and actually with what I had shared with you earlier.
Take my headphones out. I'm
gonna give spoiler-free review.
Oh,
Yes, I laughed from start to end. Like, and when I say start, I mean before the Warner Brothers logo. Because, I mean, I don't even think Deadpool did this, where you have Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool talking through the Marvel, production credits scene.
Mm-hmm.
The Lego Batman movie does that. It just starts black screen, and you got picture Will Arnett, and I'm paraphrasing here, black. All great movies start with black. And then going the production credits and going like breaking the fourth wall and saying how the movie is made and all that.
That's great.
But yeah, the other great element in here is the characters. I mean, this is essentially a movie where we have Batman, and I will address one of the complaints that Beat said on Batman of that people had, where he's a little too like wanting to be the loner, but it works. I mean, because he's Batman. Whenever anyone thinks of Batman, they have a back of the mind thought of Robin, but it's like, oh, he's this rough, tough, big dude who's got 9 abs. Sorry, I spoiled a little bit of a joke there, but it's in the beginning. It's hilarious to see. I besides the fact that there was a dude sleeping behind me, like, and going from light just snoring to the people up front are going to hear you, dude. And I wanted to throw my popcorn at him, just like go, oh, you scared me. Sorry there, bud. But then I probably would have got punched. But we're laughing throughout this whole movie, like start to finish, with the references, and just picking out characters like Kate Micucci as Clayface. That's a brilliant casting choice, from the comedy standpoint, because I mean, you got small little Kate Micucci doing the big, like a buff guy voice, and I'm like, wait, oh, that's brilliant. After I looked her up on IMDb through all the characters, they blended this perfectly with like a Lego movie style, because you see other properties in here. You see the Wicked Witch of the West, you see the Daleks, which they just call British invasion bots or something like that, and it's really cleverly done throughout the whole movie, and so fucking hilarious. And I mean, there was a kid laughing in front of me, and I'm like, did he even get the joke? Like they're making references to like the 66 Batman, and he's up there the whole time. I was like, if he gets this, he is like my new best friend, and he's only like 4 years old, sort of deal. But no, so cool. Bryce, go out and catch it when you get a chance. and all that, and you will enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I really dug the Lego movie, and we looked it up before the show. Lord and Miller are producers on the Batman movie, so I'm stoked because the Lego movie was just a really tight comedy, right? Like a lot of jokes and a lot of them landed. So
Yeah, it's a very similar thing here. Especially with it's like with that and with doing references, like it's this great balancing act for the whole family. Like there's a lot of the jokes for the kids, and then for the older people, for the parents and stuff, there's a lot of references to, maybe from when they were a kid and watched Batman, maybe like the 66 Batman television show, or the early Batman movie, or anything like that. And it was just really clever at how they did the things. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching, I'm like, all right, Mom's boyfriend saying he wants to go see this. I'm gonna go again with them and watch this movie.
High praise.
Just so we could sit there and laugh. Yeah.
That's the one thing, because of the loneliness, other things, that's things I've heard, and I usually ignore anything before I see a movie for myself without having other people tell me how I should feel. But the first one had so many characters that they can deliver punchlines, dang, 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 like that. And when you focus on one, it would be hard to keep up that thing. And so they had to get another beat, another pace for the whole thing, I assume. And that isn't easy because it was so much from the first one movie worked. Comedy works with timing. It's so empirical that it works, and I hope they can keep it up. But I see that Batman could be more skewed towards children than the first one was. The first one subverted you into thinking it was a kid's tale, but then it went places. Did Batman also have that, like the end of the Lego movie, that it broke the fourth wall and gave you another peek?
No, well, not in that same way. They use other movies, and I'm trying to say this spoiler free as I can. They use other movies in a no. You're good. You're good.
Okay.
They use other movies in that way of breaking the fourth wall. Basically, with this Lego franchise, they have not had a movie yet that has not had a live action element. Now, this is not to say that they filmed anything for this, but part of it you can guess, because think back to the history of Batman and what they might have done, especially in the 60s. And there are, clips from there. There are clips from other, Warner Brothers owned movies in here for, to demonstrate Batman's off time. I'll put it to you that way. But the thing, honestly, that has me more interested is, what are they going to do with this next movie? Because the next movie they have is Lego Ninjago movie. I think this is going to be their big challenge, because these first two Lego movies have been comedies. With the Lego Ninjago TV show, it's not a comedy. There are funny moments in there, but it's one of those like Power Rangers type shows.
But you get the kids, right? Supposedly it's going to come out in September.
Yeah.
Get a good kids movie. If the kids have already seen the Lego movies and already know that they're really good, or if they're really bought into Ninjago, like, it's probably definitely going to skew much younger than the crossover appeal of Batman and the Lego movie. But like, yeah, go for it. I mean, it's not like it's if it were Bionicle, I would worry about it. But
yeah. But the one thing that you probably want to do is leave DC or Warner Brothers and stuff behind, so they don't have to always pay royalties and give half of their money to other people that only give their IP, nothing else. So I can see them going places, and they establish themselves as a veritable storytelling medium, and it works. Mm-hmm. We all were, at least I was, laughing about the idea itself when it was first conceived or was talked about. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll just see the same thing with the Emoji movie or with Tetris movies.
That will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is going to do it for the ElseViews, and we will be right back with the ElseWords. And we are back, and it is time for the ElseWords. This is our discussion topic for the evening, and we're going to talk to Neshcom. We're going to talk to Bryce, a little bit. We're just going to, bullshit around for a little bit here, to let the people who might only see Bryce as the producer of Cord Killers, Night Attack, all these shows. Let's give them a new perspective on who he might be as a person.
Okay.
So I know you, not personally, but I've met, heard about you through doing the music for Night Attack, the comedy albums. So
right.
you start in music? How did you, or is it just like a fun little hobby thing, or what was it?
So I started toying. I mean, I guess I started toying around with music as a kid. In middle school, I was in the band. I played clarinet for 3 years. In high school, I started messing around with what is it, Sony Vegas? No, not Vegas. Acid. When it was Acid, and I don't think Sony owns that anymore. And just making really crappy sounding things. And once I went into college, which I went in for, it wasn't a film school. It's called kinetic imaging, so it's a fine arts degree, but it's based on art that takes place over time. So things like video and installations and audio was a big part of it. And so, most of the people went in there wanted to learn video production stuff or animation and CG or gaming stuff. And so I was one of the very few people who spent a lot of time focusing on audio to the point of it's kind of an open curriculum. So you just pick the classes at the level that you like. I ran out of audio classes to take. So I had to retake one just because there wasn't as much interest from everybody else. So I've been doing music for a while now, and yeah. So I had done remixes for NSFW show back in the day, and the Night Attack comedy albums, and it was. I don't know. It was a fascination for me because in high school I thought I would go to college for graphic design, and then when I found this other major, I just fell in love and being able to do music as a part of all of my projects for that. Like it was a very integral part of the things that I was doing. So I guess that's how I got my first album. If you go on my Bandcamp, my post pop album was actually my senior project for one of those audio classes, and it's like a double album, and there's a short story with it, and then for another class, I made an animated sort of 8-bit looking sort of trailer for the album, and it's that merging of all these things of story and audio and visual, and I think that's really what motivates me to do these music projects.
Nice.
Which is kind of where I've been stuck. I actually had a really great conversation with someone earlier this week of why I haven't been doing as much stuff lately, and part of it is I'm waiting for story. Story is so important to me when it comes to things like albums, and that's what I'm keeping an eye out for.
Cool. So,
go in there because I do music on my own just for myself. But I'm interested, besides doing remixes, how do you like to approach your music taking from sources or going with doing every instrument yourself? What's your usual game plan?
So when I was doing a bunch of stuff, like the remixes or the albums, there was always a nugget of inspiration. And so for the remixes, like the podcast remixes, you always had the show to go off of, or the comedy albums to go off of. And with the albums, I very much worked I mean, for some people it would be working backwards, but like, I always worked with the progression of the story in mind. So I would, I think for both of the albums that I put out, I started with a track listing first, and then made the music to fit that like narrative arc. And so, you know, when I found the movie that I based Mercury Counter on, it just started as this like idea, like, well, you know, this is a public domain movie. You know, if it's pretty well positioned, or the audio and the way that it is, and being of the time, uh, are very prime materials to like reimagine this story. So I would say I don't have like a very reliable source of inspiration, because I think those ideas have come from very wildly different places. But in general, having a story to tell is like the thing that gets me going with like big projects.
So you go the more the artistic route, and instead of the production route, you try to tell something, to evoke something with your music, with your product.
I would hope so. You know, last year I put out a couple of songs in the past 2 years, to various degrees of self-satisfaction. And I think it's mostly been because I haven't had that sort of story inspiration stuff to work from. But I'm taking proactive steps to try to get into that space, and hopefully at least start working on a new album this year.
Cool.
Cool. So what inspires you? What are some of the things that inspire, you know, not necessarily just music, but like with a lot of the things that you do? What tends to be the go-to thing for inspiration?
Man, that's tough, because a lot of what I do now in the creative space is my professional work, just being the podcasts or things like Scam School. And so that's usually other people's content or other people's stories, and injecting my own voice, and working to what those shows are. But for me, I don't know. It's been a while since I feel like I've started something that is innately my own. So I would say that I don't have an answer for that. Oh, that's oof.
Well, I feel like you sort of answered it a little bit, where you said that, like, it could be anything for with the music and stuff like that. So I was just wondering if there was like okay, I need inspiration, and I like, with me, I'm very visual, so it'll be, you know, like movies or comic books and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, especially when I was younger and listening to music, like it would always end up getting paired with whatever I was doing at the time. So it's like, you know, like there's a certain song that I can play in my head, because when I'm bored at work and I'm not listening to podcasts, I'm usually playing music in my head and all that, even though I've got headphones right here and I could actually play the song. And it'll remind me of like the first time I heard that song, or a monumental moment in my life where I heard that song. So that's sort of why I asked that question. And I think it might be a little bit similar. He said, trying to give you an out.
Yeah, I think so. Part of it is, if I'm not working off story or on a larger project like that, it will often be wanting to ape somebody else's sound. So one of the songs that I put out last year is called Transmit, which I think ended up being a really nice song. But also, if you take a real hard look at the way that song is structurally and arrangement wise, it definitely sounds a lot like a very specific Crystal Castle song. Whoops. But that, at least that's a jumping off point for me, is like finding something I really, really dig, either audibly if it's like a one-off thing, or if there's a story or a plot that I really dig, and going from there. Though I would say I don't know that I have a great at bat record with trying to ape other people's sounds.
Yeah.
And not in terms of stuff I release, because I generally just, if I don't like it, I try not to release it. But there, like, I've definitely got a lot of demos of some real like shitty ass, wannabes, But I'm sure most musicians have that too. So
Yeah.
The thing that combines the things you do with producing with music is when people are on Diamondclub TV, a place to be, and watch your shows when you start to the pre-show. You often use music from South Korea, K-pop, and other such things. Is that also something you picked up thanks to doing the shows you do, or is that something you encountered yourself and said, "Wow, that's music I really dig and delve into"?
Well, a quick correction. I listen to basically no Korean pop, but I listen to a lot of Japanese pop. There's a very specific difference.
They don't like that being sorry.
Well, it's
all Korean to all Japanese people.
I mean, I can get into a 30-minute tangent on this, but they're very different, like approaches. Even
one's Korea, one's Japan. Come on, B.
That's true. That I do listen to and share a lot of Japanese music. Even like within the past week, an amazing Japanese album came out that I love, and I will share it in other mediums. But that started in middle school, I guess. I don't know. Whenever like when you hear the Kingdom Hearts commercial as a kid enough times, and you hear that really great bit of Simple and Clean, it digs into you when you look for it and you find other things. So that's probably like how I initially got into it, which I think a lot of American listeners of Japanese music did, is through Kingdom Hearts or an anime that they really liked. Like that media proliferation is a very powerful tool for an international listener who may not have direct discovery tools for them. And so going through middle school and high school and finding other people who listen to some of that stuff, and even through college, I would say that's mostly what I listened to. Though in college, I also was really getting into electronic and DJ music, because I was DJing a little bit then. And now I have like my That Sounds Cool project, which is trying to like discover new and different types of music and share it with everybody. And so I feel like I've opened up the doors even more. And so within the past 5 years, I've gone from like listening to a lot of foreign music now to listening to a little bit of everything.
Yeah. It's weird because you're saying these things like, that sounds like a lot like me, because where it wasn't Kingdom Hearts, it was anime, and then a resurgence with baby metal,
Sure.
to where now it's like on my Google Play, it's like I'll play, it's either like baby metal music or the radio station or the like essential J-pop or something like that when I'm feeling in the mood. And it's like, but yeah, like I tell people like, well, what's the music into? I'm like, anything but country and mainstream hip hop, because the mainstream hip hop ones, they have to have that. They have to hit a right thing for me to enjoy it.
I'll say that I've actually found some country over this past year that I dug. Sturgill Simpson.
Yep.
He's Grammy nominated actually now.
Yeah.
His last little EP was pretty nice, and I think it's called Into the Sea, or maybe that's that Blue October song.
And the Waffle House song with Colbert, yeah.
Is that him?
Yeah.
Or is
they recorded both, and they pretended to be waiters in the Waffle House. It was pretty good, and I saw him the first time there because Colbert sometimes has great guests as musical guests, and My dad listens to so much country, I couldn't stand it anymore. And it takes something special like Johnny Cash and like virtuals. They go a little out of their way or do their own thing, not a bland story about having lost somebody or whatever.
Yeah. That's the same thing with me. Like, I work at a Target in the selling phones and stuff, and so I can tell you right now, if you want Garth Brooks' CD collection thing that he released, where you can get it real cheap, and that's at the Target I work at, because we have probably about 100 copies of it. But Garth Brooks is like, I heard so much of him that I can't. It's like I can't really get into him unless it's like Thunder Rolls, or Friends in Low Places and stuff like that. But there are a good number of country singers that I can listen to, but it's similar to Beat with like that. Oh, they're they lost the dog. They this that the stereotypical country song that I can't really get into. And
there should be some country music in John Wick 2 then. Spoiler. But just out of curiosity, are you a fan of the Yoko Kanno music, the things she did for anime games?
Yeah. Very
Cowboy Bebop, Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, probably a lot of those the very prominent like American crossover things. Certainly, I didn't really like. I've only had very specific like experiences with anime, like whatever was on Adult Swim or Toonami at the time, and then if something very specific caught my interest. But it would be mostly her like big well-known things probably.
Okay.
All right, switching from the music stuff, what are some other things? Yeah, what are some other things that interest you? Like we've mentioned the gaming and stuff, but what are like that a lot of people wouldn't know about Bryce that he's into?
Man, it's weird because I feel like I live a pretty open book, so I don't even know what people might and might not know about me. I generally like to cook. I feel like I've met a surprising amount of people who I've told that to, and they thought and had them say, "Oh, I never cook," to make me. That's a more unique thing.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that might be because you're very small dude, and it's like meanwhile I'm 300 pounds. You're like, and I say, oh, I like to cook. We're like, yeah, duh, and you like to eat too, don't you? It's like, first off, fuck you, but second off, yes, I do like to eat.
It's probably not a surprise that I like music and rhythm games. Probably not a surprise to anybody there. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, man,
So you
I don't know.
played DJ Mania in the 90s?
Say again?
DJ Mania with a small DJ controller that was on PlayStation 1 or 2?
DJ Hero?
Or was it called DJ Hero? No, it was an older game that was the first one to put such a controller out. But
I really dig Beatmania, which they don't
that one then.
make anymore. Yeah, no, I dig that. I even got I would bootleg those Beatmania games because you could get one of those swap discs for your PlayStation, and so they had put out one of those games in America, so I had a controller, and that was a lot of fun. I actually here since I moved to Austin, there's actually an arcade here that has a more recent Beatmania machine, which is like fucking mind blowing that it's even here. But yeah, like that's probably I don't know. It's such a weird thing because when I talk to other people, or if I am, I don't know, trying to meet new people, and I'm like, hey, so like, what are you into? I feel like I'm pretty judgmental if they don't really have like a hobby or something. But so many of my hobbies are work, you know, podcasting or making videos or making music and stuff. I don't. Maybe I have no off work hobbies. Oh, that would be weird. That's weird because I would.
Well, I think, but here's how I would say that though, and I feel like I'm justifying it for you. Have you reached a point where the things that you do feel like work? You know, like it's like, oh, I gotta go. You know, I mean, because I mean, here, yeah, this is a fun thing that I do. You know, I'm not really making any money on it. Well, we're not really making any money on it at all. And stuff, and you know, I still got to work. You know, go sell phones at Target and stuff like that. But yet, this is fun. You know, sitting here getting to meet, you know, people from around the world. I tell people all the time, my best friends aren't in this town I live in. They're in California, you know, be over in Switzerland, and you know, I got friends in England and stuff that I've never met face to face and all that. And it's because of this here, you know, and I have to thank Glenn Rubenstein for that, because he's the one who started this whole thing up here. And so it's like, yeah, so do you get, so is it still like that? Like, is it still like, do you still find fun with it? Yeah.
I'd say mostly, yeah. You know, it's a weird thing to be like, yeah, I love engineering live streams, but I do. I dig like the live switching and stuff. So yeah, I guess that makes me feel better about that. But I don't I don't have any secret hobbies, right? Like someone tuning into this, unfortunately, is not going to find out about my secret knitting history. Like, nah, I'm pretty
master of the cross stitch.
It's always been, but we had Christy Cates before on, and we had also Jackie Hearn on, and trying to get them a little bit out of their skin and not being on a podcast producing themselves, but they know they can lay back and be talking about the things they most prominently want to talk about. And the thing that most interested me in your involvement is how you came into be in the whole Diamondclub family, how that transition went into that being from a hobby, I guess, before that, and then to actually being your day job.
Yeah. Like my first discovery with Diamondclub would have been, I remember it specific. I don't remember the specific date, but in college. Was it in college? No. What did I remember before that? No, it was in college. I really followed Boing Boing a lot, boingboing.net, and which is like a geek culture and cyber culture sort of blog.
Great person.
Yeah, and so Jenny was on an episode of Twit one week, and I was like, oh, cool, I'll check that out. And then that sort of spiraled, or I don't know, found its way into me finding NSFW and being part of the chat room, and always like trying to catch the show live whenever I could. I remember it would have been my second year of college. I had a late night class on Tuesdays, and for whatever reason, I was working in the lab late one night, and it was right about the time that NSFW was about to start for the night. And so instead of walking the 10 minutes to my apartment, I just stayed in the lab and like was dying watching the it was the NACA episode of NSFW. And I was like, okay, yeah, like this is great. And so that actually got me into doing my own podcast and stuff. And so once I was ready to make a move out of my government video job, and I knew I wanted to move to Austin regardless, it just was very serendipitous of Brian looking for a new person and all of the shows going independent and needing somebody to click all of these buttons for them. and then just ended up transitioning into more and more roles on these shows that I generally love. You know, that was the thing that I hated about the last job of mine, is that I honestly really didn't care about it. Like I didn't even live in the city that I was working for, so like I didn't have any sort of civic pride in these boring ass council meetings. So
No, yeah, definitely. That's the cool thing that I found with this is hearing the stories of how people got in to this common interest that's, you know, like NSFW or Night Attack or you know, even like Tom's stuff. And it's like, because I came at it from Scam School, like it was weird, like G4 around the Net Attack of the Show thing, then eventually finding Scam School, and then finding the BB Live show stuff, and just being like, all right, hey, this is awesome. Oh, they're going on Twitch. Oh, that's cool. And discovering all the Twitch shows and discovering Tom through Tech News Today. And then now here it's like I'm doing this after because Glenn Rubenstein was doing Game On as a producer, and he was doing he would do the show thing from his house where he would just sit there and talk about TV shows and stuff from the past week. My ass shows up, and then I never left. And Glenn eventually gave me the keys to the car and was like, here you go off to college. Sweet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so where can people find out more about you and the things that you do?
Sure. The easiest, if you use Twitter a lot, is to follow me on Twitter at Brycas, BRYCAS. That's where I mostly talk about the things that I mean, I'm on Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and stuff, but I think Twitter is probably my most active thing right now. And if you want to find about the things that I work on, my website is neshcom.com, neshcom.com. There's links to pretty much everything I do there, the shows that I produce, the shows that I'm on, projects that I've done in the past, some of my music and things. Anything between those two, you'll pretty much get everything.
Cool. And so that's just gonna about wrap it up here for us. You know, you guys can contact us by leaving us a voicemail at 805-328-3966 or email us mail@elsenerds.com. And you know, you can find all of our stuff there at our website, gncast.com/subscribe. You can find us on Facebook, just look for Galactic Netcasts. That's also where you can find us on Twitter at Galactic Netcasts, and the show is at ElseNerds. Evan, our producer, is at Mr_Fusion. My typical co-host, you can usually find his stuff at don'taskcomics.com. I'm at that Gregor. Beat, where can people find you?
At Beatmaster80.
And and also I found out you can change your name on Instagram, so I'm that Gregor, because someone has that Gregor and doesn't do anything with it. I'm like, ugh, assholes. But the final thing to be said is this has been a Don't Tell Glenn production. We'll see you guys next week.
Or else.